What if I told you the next fuel revolution isn't buried deep underground? In a nutshell, while the world chases oil, Burkina Faso just turned toxic wasteus, the poisonous shell of a cashew, into fuel, power, and national pride. This isn't agriculture, it's economic warfare. And the battlefield, a $11.5 million plant turning snacks into sovereignty. Still think it's just a nut? Think again. In a bold strategic pivot, Burkina Faso is betting big on something most of the world has long overlooked: the humble cashew nut. But this isn't just about expanding exports or boosting snack production. This is about transforming the country's agricultural identity into a force of independence and innovation. And yes, they're buying cashew nuts, lots of them. As many as they want, when they want. There are no limits. Contracts have already been signed, not just drafted. This isn't a vague vision anymore. It's in motion. What's more shocking, the star of the show isn't even the nut itself, but the toxic shell it comes in. That's right, the bitter outer layer of the cashew, once burned or discarded as worthless waste, is now being re-engineered into a critical national asset. Welcome to Burkina Faso, where a discarded byproduct is being weaponized into energy, income, and sovereignty. Thanks to a groundbreaking $11.5 million investment, a state-of-the-art cashew processing plant is now operating as both an industrial powerhouse and a clean energy lab. But it's not just about building a factory, it's about building freedom. The logic behind this shift is simple but genius. Burkina Faso produces close to 2 million tons of cashew apples every year. Previously, the majority of it went underutilized. But now, efforts are in full swing to process both the nut and the shell, tapping into the full potential of the crop. Here's the twist: that caustic liquid inside the shell, once deemed dangerous to bother with, it's now refined into biofuel through advanced chemical engineering. The plant extracts cardonal, a high-value compound with uses ranging from eco-friendly diesel substitutes to military-grade lubricants. To the outside world, it might still look like a snack operation. But to President Ibrahim Traoré, this is asymmetric warfare, an industrial masterstroke that turns every cashew into a strike against economic dependency. While Western analysts wrote off Africa's agricultural economies as primitive, Traoré quietly approved one of the continent's most ambitious industrial shifts. This is innovation without permission, without loans, without strings, without begging. It's a silent revolution that turns trash into triumph. And this revolution doesn't stop at the gates of the plant. The real warriors in this battle, Burkina Faso's farmersmen and women who once earned pennies exporting raw cashew nuts, are now frontliners in an economic insurgency. Under Traoré's directive, farmers no longer serve the global market's bottom rung. They're stakeholders. Women-led cooperatives are thriving. Profit margins have tripled. Entire communities are seeing transformation. But perhaps the most groundbreaking change of all, the government now buys the cashew waste directly from farmers. That means every nut harvested brings two income streams, one from the nut and one from the shell. In other words, agricultural waste has become a currency of empowerment. The facility itself doubles as an energy center and economic command post. It reduces the country's reliance on foreign oil, builds energy self-sufficiency, and allows Burkina Faso to assert itself in global trade negotiations, all without asking the IMF for a bailout. And while global powers argue over rare earths and fossil fuels, Burkina Faso is quietly redefining what strategic resources even mean. Through one processing plant, the country has turned its back on the exploitative export economy and stepped into a new era of self-defined prosperity. Traoré's playbook isn't borrowed from foreign think tanks. It's written in the soil. And here's the kicker: the factory pays for itself. Most aid-funded projects drown in red tape, maintenance, headaches, and donor dependency. But this cashew plant was engineered for triple profitability: nut exports, shell-based biofuel, and massive local employment. In just 1 year, revenue from shelled nuts covered 45% of the plant's original construction cost. Add in fuel licensing, government purchase orders, and the numbers move from viable to aggressive. This isn't aid. It's an economic engine. Even the dust doesn't go to waste. Ground-up shell residue is pressed into eco-bricks, fueling a new wave of rural housing development. Meanwhile, community reinvestment is baked into the business model. Scholarships, microloans, and farm-to-factory training programs are now routine, not wishful thinking. This is what real economic freedom looks like. Financial independence is always the first step toward political sovereignty, and Traoré knows it. So while critics fixate on the $11.5 million price tag, his government smiles. This isn't debt, it's leverage. And the returns, let's just say they don't fit on an IMF spreadsheet, because there's no line item for dignity, no cell for national pride, no formula for how a single nutshell can shift a nation's fate. Yet here we are. The world underestimated the shell. They saw it as trash. Burkina Faso saw it as transformation. This isn't just about cashews. It's about turning what the world throws away into what the nation stands on. What the West ignored, Burkina Faso weaponized. For decades, international experts coached African farmers to discard cashew shellskins, considering them nothing more than hazardous agricultural waste. That mistake cost billions in missed opportunity. But Burkina Faso, it saw goldware. Others saw garbage. At the center of this radical redefinition stands at $11.5 million cashew processing plant to bold. Homegrown marvel, proving that the underestimated shell may very well be Burkina Faso's secret superpower. In partnership with regional universities, Burkina scientists developed an advanced distillation technique so potent it left visiting European engineers stunned. The oil content extracted from local cashew waste, richer and more efficient than Brazilian or Indian varieties long considered the global standard. Translation: Burkina's waste isn't just usable, it's premium grade. President Ibrahim Traoré isn't keeping the success quiet. He's inviting regional leaders from Mali and Niger to tour the facility. Whispers are growing louder about a Sahelian biofuel alliance, with Burkina Faso as the central hub. If realized, this cashew shell initiative won't just reshape Burkina's economy, it could redraw the region's energy map. Meanwhile, Western policymakers scramble to understand how they missed this seismic shift. And that's the thing. When you underestimate a nation's capacity for innovation, you don't just miss progress, you miss the revolution. Burkina Faso has just turned a discarded shell into a megaphone, and it's shouting, "We're done begging." This is more than industrial strategy. It's a complete reframing of value. Where development models once looked down on waste, Burkina Faso sees opportunity. Every drop of cashew shell oil speaks volumes, throwing a proverbial middle finger to the long history of extractive aid, debt traps, and colonial-era assumptions. In every gallon refined, a new message rings out. Africa doesn't need permission, it needs control. Inside the $11.5 million facility, there's a quiet movement stirring. It's not just the machines humming or the tanks distilling oil. It's the heartbeat of a new generation. Traore understood something his predecessors didn't. You don't secure a nation's future without activating its youngest minds. That's why the plant was designed with an on-site innovation lab, operated by a team of young Burkina chemists, coders, and engineers. Every week, new applications for cashew byproducts are born. Biodegradable plastics, even prototypes for military-grade materials. Each success chips away at the false narrative that Africa must import intelligence. In this lab, local youth are redefining science as something inherently African. And the education doesn't stop there. Students from nearby schools now visit the plant as part of their curriculum. Some intern in the lab. Others have begun planting cashew hybrids in test fields nearby, aiming to increase both nut yield and oil density. The result, a generation not dreaming of Europe but dreaming of building Burkina, while the plant churns out biofuel that powers everything from military vehicles to local buses. Its deeper fuel is intellectual. In a continent ravaged by brain drain, Traore is pulling brilliance back home, one cashew shell at a time. The factory isn't just exporting energy, it's exporting dignity, innovation, and belief. Don't be fooled by international silence. Behind closed doors, Western development agencies are growing nervous. How did a landlocked, economically sanctioned country build one of Africa's most strategic facilities without their consultants, without their capital, and without their oversight? The truth is both simple and humiliating. Burkina Faso did it alone. No USAID, no World Bank, no strings attached. This was grassroots engineering, regional collaboration, and political will, pure and unapologetic. Traore didn't need think tanks, he needed action. And now, the results are impossible to ignore. The irony. Countries that once dispatched experts to lecture Burkina are now requesting quiet tours of the facility. Some Western defense circles are even exploring how civilian plants like these could support military fuel reserves in war zones. Meanwhile, in Bobo Dioulasso, local pride is erupting. The annual Cashew Harvest Festival now doubles as a celebration of sovereignty. Children wear shirts with cashew nuts shaped like fuel tanks. Alleyways are painted with murals of Traore towering over burning cashew shells. Not propaganda, but pride. This $11.5 million facility represents far more than innovation. It's a symbol of what happens when a nation stops waiting and starts building its own future. And Traore isn't done. His office has greenlit feasibility studies for similar waste-to-wealth initiatives using mango, shea, and even onion waste. A new blueprint is taking shape, not based on exports, but on energy, autonomy, and circular economics. The future of Burkina Faso isn't found in foreign embassies. It's in the soil, in the shells, in the students and scientists shaping tomorrow with what was once thrown away. Traore calls it the sovereignty corridor chain of smart, state-owned processing hubs stretching across the Sahel. If realized, it could shift the region's economic center of gravity, making West Africa a tech-driven, energy-independent powerhouse. And people are responding. In towns and villages, there's talk of building a cashew tech institute beside the plant. Scholarships are in motion. A waste-to-wealth curriculum is being drafted. This isn't just a facility anymore, it's a future factory. Burkina Faso didn't just invest in cashews. It invested in control of its resources, its knowledge, and its destiny. Every nut harvested, every shell burned, every drop of biofuel refined carries the same bold message. We are not your suppliers, we are our own future. From once overlooked shells to now celebrated shields of economic strength. The $11.5 million cashew plant is more than a factory. It's a declaration that Africa is done being the raw material warehouse of the world. It's not just processing cashews, it's exporting hope. So, next time you hear someone say waste, tell them to take a closer look at Burkina Faso, because in this land, waste is the new weapon.